My name is Avery Lane, and I never expected to become the center of an HR scandal. I didn't flirt, I didn't cross lines, and I didn't chase anyone. I was just trying to survive my first year at a fast-moving tech firm in Denver, keeping my head down and doing the kind of work people overlook until they need it. Then, my VP, Miles Porter, started trusting me with projects that usually go to people with corner offices and a decade of experience. One late-night review, one jealous coworker, and one perfectly timed photo were all it took for the entire office to turn on me and rewrite my story into something I didn't recognize. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like if you've ever been in a workplace where hard work wasn't enough, where someone twisted your success into something ugly. Stay with me, because the truth behind my HR investigation is messier, colder, and far more calculated than anyone imagined. What happened to me didn't start with a rumor. It started with someone deciding my rise was a threat. When I first walked into Redwood Digital, I felt like an imposter wearing someone else's badge. The lobby smelled like fresh coffee and new carpet, the kind of scent that tells you this company has money. Real money. Denver's morning light spilled across the glass walls, catching specks of dust that floated like they had somewhere better to be. People rushed past me holding laptops and Stanley cups, talking about campaigns, budgets, and product launches before 8 in the morning. I had taken the light rail that day, clutching my backpack to my chest, reminding myself that this job could finally pull me out of the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle I'd been in since college. Redwood was the kind of place people bragged about on LinkedIn, the kind with kombucha taps, meditation rooms, and dogs trotting around in branded bandanas. It was also the kind of place where one mistake could get you quietly replaced by someone hungrier and younger. I joined as a content strategist, junior enough to be invisible if I messed up, visible enough that every deliverable had my name on it. I wanted to belong here, but growing up in a working-class family where my mom worked double shifts and my dad fixed whatever broke with duct tape, I always felt unpolished. Everyone else seemed to have parents who worked in tech or who grew up knowing what portfolio reviews were. I didn't even know what kombucha tasted like. My first week was a blur of onboarding documents, Slack notifications I didn't understand, and walking into conference rooms where people talked over each other with the confidence of TED Talk speakers. But there was one moment that stood out. The first time I saw Miles Porter. He was standing at the front of the Maple conference room, dark blue button-down rolled to his forearms, explaining a quarterly strategy shift to a room full of directors. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence did the work for him. His slides were clean, his points sharp, and every time someone interrupted with a half-thought, he navigated it with the kind of patience that suggested this wasn't the first time he'd carried an entire department on his back. People said he was the only VP who actually deserved the title. Watching him, I understood why. I didn't expect him to know who I was. New hires didn't get attention from executives, not unless something went wrong. So, in my second week, when someone from analytics challenged one of my campaign proposals in a team meeting, I braced myself for humiliation. "I'm not sure this approach fits our user persona," the analyst said, tapping his pen against the table, sounding bored. Before I could defend myself, Miles spoke without looking up from his notes. "It fits," he said. "Let her walk you through the reasoning." 4 words, but the whole room shifted. I walked him through my logic, while pretending my heart wasn't pounding out of my chest. When I finished, he finally looked at me, really looked at me, and nodded. "Good instincts," he said. "We're moving forward with her direction." It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't even warm. It was respect. And for me, that was enough to spark something dangerous, the desire to prove him right. After that, he started adding me to meetings I never thought I'd be invited to. "Avery should sit in. Avery has context. Let's have Avery lead this part." He trusted me with big accounts, ones people like me weren't supposed to touch until year 3. I found myself noticing things I shouldn't have. The slight smile he gave when someone impressed him, the way he pushed up his sleeves when he was thinking, the quiet tone he used when speaking one-on-one. There was never a line crossed between us. But there were moments, a glance held too long, a silence that felt weighted, a small pause before he dismissed me from a meeting that made me wonder if he felt something too. And that's exactly when Jenna Cross re-entered the picture. Jenna had been at Redwood for years, and everyone knew she once had a direct line to Miles. Not romantically, at least no one had proof, but professionally, she'd been his favorite. She presented his decks. She prepared his talking points. She knew how he took his coffee and reminded him of deadlines before his calendar did. She thrived on being close to power. So when she noticed him starting to look my way during meetings, even for a second, the temperature in the room changed. One afternoon, while we waited for a client call to start, Jenna leaned back in her chair, eyes flicking between Miles and me. "You two are spending a lot of time together," she said casually. Too casually. I blinked. "He's my VP." She smiled like she knew a secret. "Sure, that's one word for it." I laughed it off. I shouldn't have, because that was the first seed she planted, the one that would eventually ruin everything. By the time December rolled around, the Denver air had turned thin and cold, the kind that made your breath visible even at midday. Performance review season at Redwood felt just as icy. People joked about survival mode, but tension leaked through every hallway. Even the kombucha tap went quiet. I had been bracing myself for a mediocre review. I didn't think Miles saw me as anything more than a competent strategist who got lucky with a few solid campaigns. So when I saw the meeting request pop up on my calendar, performance review prep, Miles Porter, 7:30 p.m., Cedar Conference Room, my stomach flipped. Who schedules a review at 7:30? Managers who care a little too much, or ones who care too little? I didn't know which one he was. Under the appointment, he added a note. "Schedule this after hours so we can go through your growth without interruptions. Strictly work." Strictly work. That should have calmed me. It didn't. All afternoon I coached myself through it. On my walk to Starbucks, on my light rail ride home to change shirts, at the gym when I tried to burn off anxiety with a treadmill run. I told myself the same thing on repeat. You earned your place here. Stay focused. Don't read into anything. By 7:25, the office was nearly deserted. The open desk area, normally loud with keyboard clicks and Slack pings, was silent. Only a handful of screens glowed in the distance. The Denver skyline outside the windows was a stretch of cold blue lights against the mountains. As I walked to Cedar, I felt more like I was walking into a confession booth than a conference room. Miles was already there, sleeves rolled, jacket off, a stack of papers beside him. A soft lamp illuminated the space, casting a warm glow that worked too hard against the glass and metal around us. "Hey, Avery," he said, standing as I entered. "Glad you could make this time." "I'm here," I managed. "Thanks for staying late." He smiled faintly. "For the right people, I don't mind." Something fluttered in my chest I didn't want to name. I sat down, hands clasped too tightly in my lap. He slid a paper toward me. "Let's start with the basics. You had an exceptional year." Exceptional. No one had ever used that word about my work before. He went on, listing specifics. "You saved the Lennox account when they were ready to pull out. Your messaging framework for Harper Tech outperformed projections by 23%. You've become the person I rely on when I need clarity." Each sentence pushed warmth up my neck. It wasn't the praise itself, it was how sincerely he meant it, like he'd been waiting for a chance to say these things out loud. "And because of all this," he continued, "I'm recommending you for promotion to senior strategist." I froze. "Me?" He looked up sharply. "Who else would it be?" The room felt smaller. The lamp glows warmer. The quiet between us is heavier. He leaned back slightly, eyes softening the way they sometimes did when he forgot to be Miles the VP and slipped into being just Miles. "You think like a director," he said. "Not a strategist, not even a senior. A director." My throat tightened. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll keep doing exactly what you're doing." For a second, neither of us looked away. The air was thick with something neither of us dared acknowledge. That unspoken awareness, that magnetic pull that had been quietly building for months, suddenly it wasn't subtle anymore. It was right there between us. He opened his mouth again, voice lower. "Avery, I want you to know that if I've ever—" A sharp knock cut him off. The door swung open before he could respond. And there she was, Jenna Cross, her silhouette framed by the hallway's cold light, expression caught between surprise and calculation. She took in the scene in one sweep. Dim lamp, closed-door meeting, papers scattered, 2 glasses of water, Miles leaning forward, me sitting too close. Her gaze sharpened like she had just discovered a loaded weapon. "Oh," she said lightly, one hand still on the doorknob. "Didn't realize you two were still here." Miles straightened instantly, posture snapping back into professionalism. "We're finishing her review." "Of course." Jenna stepped inside just far enough to be intrusive. "Late-night review sessions? Must be something big." I opened my mouth, but she beat me to it. "Congrats on the promotion, Avery," she said with a smile that sliced. "Word travels." I felt the blood drain from my face. I hadn't told anyone. No one knew yet, which meant— Miles stiffened beside me. "Jenna, now's not—" But she was already backing out. "No worries," she said sweetly. "Didn't mean to interrupt. Carry on." The door closed. Softly. Too softly. Miles exhaled. She shouldn't have barged in. But it was too late. I knew it. He knew it. And by morning, the entire office would know it too. The next day, eyes followed me everywhere. Slack threads I normally lived in went silent when I joined. Coworkers spoke to me like I'd been caught stealing office supplies. Near the coffee machine, I heard someone whisper, "You know how she got senior, right?" Rumors move faster than truth, and Jenna had just given them a head start. The Monday after my performance review, Redwood Digital felt different, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees, even though the thermostat hadn't budged. People still carried their Starbucks cups, still typed furiously on their MacBooks, still complained about the parking garage, but something in the air had shifted. It was the way conversations paused when I walked past, the slow, assessing glances, the smirks, the sudden interest in my whereabouts. By 10 a.m., Jenna floated past my desk wearing her brightest lipstick, humming a tune that didn't exist. She dropped a stack of folders onto her chair with exaggerated cheerfulness. "Busy weekend?" she asked without looking at me. "I guess," I said. She turned, smiling razor sharp. "I heard yours was productive." I swallowed. "I had my performance review." "Oh, I know," she said, voice dipping. "Everyone knows." She walked away before I could respond, blonde ponytail swinging like punctuation. At 11:15, my Slack pinged. "Lauren Pike, HR." "Hi, Avery. Can you come by the HR office for a quick climate check? Should only take 10 minutes. Climate check. The kind of phrase that sounds harmless until you're sitting in a glass box with your job on the line. I tried to steady my breathing as I made my way down the hallway. HR sat behind frosted glass walls, the kind meant to appear approachable, but somehow felt interrogatory. Lauren welcomed me with a soft smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks for stopping by," she said, gesturing to a small chair across from her. "This is just routine." Routine my ass. She tapped her pen lightly. "So, Avery, how would you describe your working relationship with Miles Porter?" There it was. The question hangs like a guillotine. "It's professional," I said carefully. "He's my VP. He gives feedback. I deliver work." Lauren nodded slowly. "Has he ever treated you differently from others on your team?" "No." A lie by omission. He trusted me differently, but he didn't treat me differently. "Any late-night meetings that might appear unusual?" she added. My pulse thudded. He scheduled my review after hours, so it wouldn't get interrupted. She wrote something. Were you alone? Yes, I said, because it was a review. Another note. I felt like every syllable I spoke was being translated into a version I couldn't recognize. Okay, she said finally. That's all for now. If anything feels uncomfortable at any point, you can come to me. Uncomfortable. The whole meeting was uncomfortable. As I left, Lauren's voice followed me. And Avery, please avoid discussing this with your colleagues. Right. Silence. That always helps an innocent person. When I returned to my desk, people weren't even pretending anymore. 2 designers stopped mid-conversation. Someone from analytics whispered something to another coworker, eyes flicking toward my chair. But the worst part wasn't their judgment. It was Miles. He passed by my area that afternoon, talking with another director. He didn't look at me. Not once. Nor he healed me, even a nod, a half-second pause. But today he walked like I didn't exist, and he'd never done that before. Later, after everyone left for lunch, he stopped by my desk quietly. Avery, he said, do you have a minute? My heartbeat stuttered. Sure. We walked to a corner near the stairwell. He kept his voice low. I heard HR spoke with you. Yes. His jaw tightened. Did I make things harder for you? I didn't know how to answer that. If I said yes, I'd confirm the rumor. If I said no, I'd be lying to both of us. No, I said softly. The work speaks for itself. Miles looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Guilt, worry, regret, something that made my chest ache. But before either of us could say more, Jenna's laugh echoed from the nearby hallway. Miles stepped back like he'd been burned. We'll talk later, he murmured, and left. We didn't talk later, because by the next morning, something far worse happened. I was scheduled to present a client deck to a long-term partner, the kind of meeting that determines which vendors survive and which get cut. I double-checked the data the night before, triple-checked even, but the moment I clicked onto the KPI slide, my stomach dropped. The numbers were wrong. Not slightly wrong, catastrophically wrong. Off by entire percentage points, charts inverted, color coding swapped. It looked like the work of someone who didn't understand basic analytics. The client raised an eyebrow. Avery, these results contradict your previous recommendations. Heat crawled up my neck. They were correct yesterday. I don't know what happened. The meeting ended cold. Miles's expression afterward wasn't anger. It was disappointment. A quiet, heavy disappointment that hurt more. I raced back to my desk and opened the deck's editing history. My blood chilled. Last modified, 11:47 p.m., edited by Jenna Cross. I marched to her desk. You touched my slides? She blinked innocently. What? Oh, those? I saw a few inconsistencies, so I fixed them. Must have made a mistake. You changed my data. I was trying to help. Her tone was sugary. Accidents happen, Avery. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic. That was the word people used to dismiss women before they burned them to the ground. It wasn't an accident. It was sabotage. And no one, not HR, not Miles, not the team, knew the truth. Not yet. The morning after the sabotaged client meeting, I arrived early, before the espresso machine started hissing, before half the office even got off the light rail. I needed time to breathe, to think, to stop replaying the moment the client's face tightened in disappointment. But as soon as I stepped through the glass doors, I sensed something was wrong. People weren't just whispering now, they were staring. Not curious stares, not confused ones, knowing stares. By 8:12 a.m., I found out why. Lauren Pike from HR walked briskly into the open workspace, heels tapping with purpose. Avery, she said, can you come with me? The sentence that marks the beginning of every corporate downfall. Her tone was clipped, her expression hard to read. I followed her through the hallway, the fluorescent lights too bright, my palms sweating. She opened the door to the smaller HR conference room, the one they used for terminations and sensitive matters. Inside sat Evan Marshall, senior HR manager, a man with a neatly trimmed beard and the calm expression of someone who has delivered bad news so often it no longer affects him. "Avery," he said, "thank you for joining us. Please sit." Never a good sign. Lauren folded her hands. "We received an anonymous email late last night. It contained an attachment we needed to discuss." Anonymous, of course. She turned her laptop toward me, and there it was, a photo of me and Miles inside the Cedar conference room. Timestamp, 7:45 p.m. Angle, through the narrow window in the door. The lamp cast a warm glow over us, making the room look intimate. Miles leaning slightly forward, me looking at him mid-sentence, 2 glasses of water, a closed door. It wasn't the truth, but it looked like something else entirely. My stomach twisted. "This is from my performance review." Evan nodded slowly. "We're aware. The concern is the appearance of the situation." "Appearance," I repeated, "not the reality?" "Optics matter," Lauren said gently, as if that softened anything. "You know how power dynamics can be interpreted?" I pressed my palms against the cold table. "Nothing inappropriate happened." "We're not saying it did," Evan clicked his pen. "But we need to determine whether boundaries were crossed, intentionally or unintentionally." Boundaries. A word people use when they want to make you feel guilty for something you didn't do. They asked questions. Did Miles ever text me outside work hours? Did he ever sit too close? Did he ever compliment me? Did he ever suggest private meetings? Did he ever favor me? Every answer felt like a trap. Too much detail sounded guilty, too little sounded evasive. By the time they dismissed me, my throat felt scraped raw. When I stepped back into the hallway, Miles was there. He must have been waiting. His posture straightened when he saw my face. "Avery, what happened?" I shook my head slightly. HR received a photo. His expression darkened. "Of what?" "Us. That night. Someone took it." For the first time since I'd known him, Miles looked genuinely shocked, angry even. His jaw tightened. "That's impossible. Who would—" But then his eyes flicked upward, as if the answer had already formed. He didn't say Jenna's name. He didn't have to. Before he could speak again, Lauren opened the door behind me. "Miles," she said, "we need to continue the conversation with you." His face shifted, stoic, controlled, VP mode. "I'll be there," he said. Then he looked at me with something that felt like regret, or apology, or both. I didn't see him again for the rest of the day. During the afternoon meeting, he didn't call me once. Normally, he asked for my perspective, even if briefly. Today, nothing. He avoided my eyes. When I spoke up, he didn't respond. The distance hit harder than the HR meeting. Jenna, sitting 2 chairs down, noticed. Of course she noticed. She smiled into her notebook like she was savoring the moment. The office became a minefield. Every Slack ping made my shoulders tense. Every passing glance felt like someone assessing my guilt. By Thursday, rumors had solidified into office lore. People spoke as if the scandal were fact, not speculation. "Did you hear HR is investigating them?" I knew she was moving too fast. "He's protecting her, obviously." I saw them leaving together once. None of it was true, but the truth didn't matter. Rumors were cheaper and spread faster. The worst shift came Friday morning. Miles stood at the front of the weekly alignment meeting. His posture was formal, almost rigid. When he scanned the room, his eyes skipped over me like I wasn't there. "Effective immediately," he said. "Strategic review items will be redistributed across the senior team. We're restructuring responsibilities to reduce bottlenecks." He didn't say my name, but he didn't need to. He had pulled away, far away, and I felt that distance like a bruise. After the meeting, I tried to approach him. "Miles, can we talk?" He kept his eyes on the folder in his hands. "Now's not a good time." "It never is anymore," I whispered, his jaw clenched. "I'm doing what HR advised." "But what do you think?" I asked. He didn't answer. He walked away. The message was clear. To survive here, he had to let the world believe nothing was happening, even if that meant letting them destroy me. As I stood there, trying to swallow the ache in my throat, someone tugged lightly at my sleeve. It was Noah Briggs, the intern. He glanced around nervously, voice barely above a whisper. "Avery, I need to tell you something." He swallowed hard. "I know who took that photo." And just like that, the ground shifted again. I didn't see Miles at all the morning of the quarterly town hall. Normally, he arrived early, prepping slides with the data team or reviewing questions with directors. But today, nothing. Not even a passing glance near the coffee machine. It was like the universe was saving him for the stage. By the time I entered the auditorium-style meeting room, nearly every seat was filled. The hum of side conversations buzzed like static. People leaned close, whispering behind their hands. My name drifted through the air like pollen, small, invisible, everywhere. I sat 3 rows back, close enough to see everything, far enough that no one would accuse me of seeking attention. At exactly 9 a.m., CEO Cameron Doyle stepped on stage. He was polished, calm, the kind of leader who smiled like he had nothing to hide. Behind him, slides flickered awake. "Good morning, everyone. Today we're reviewing our quarterly results, upcoming initiatives, and—" He paused, too smoothly. "A new segment from the HR department regarding ethics and leadership boundaries." A rustle swept the room. The words hung in the air like smoke, and suddenly, everyone knew exactly why they were here. My pulse throbbed in my neck. Lauren and Evan walked to the front, their expressions neutral in the way only HR professionals could achieve, a neutrality that said everything. "We've been conducting a review," Lauren began, "around concerns raised about favoritism, perceived power imbalances, and inappropriate boundaries within the marketing department." The spotlight wasn't on me literally, but the room shifted toward me anyway. 1,000 invisible eyes burned across my skin. I stared at my hands. "Keep breathing. Stay calm. Don't run." Behind Lauren, the slide changed to a bullet list. Team dynamics, promotion pathways, decision-making transparency. Jenna shifted in her seat in the front row. Her posture was perfect. Her chin is high. She looked like someone preparing to accept an award. Lauren continued. "We invite anyone with concerns to share them constructively. This is a safe space." Safe, right. Then Jenna stood. Not quickly, gracefully, like she wanted the entire company to witness the moment. "I just want to say," she began, voice soft but carrying. "Some of us have noticed that opportunities in the department haven't been distributed evenly. Certain individuals," her eyes flicked toward me, slow and deadly, "seem to receive disproportionate access to high-visibility projects." Murmurs rippled across the room. She pressed on. "And while I'm sure everything is purely professional, many people feel uncomfortable with the closeness between management and specific team members." There it was, a public execution, dressed as concern. I lifted my chin. If they wanted to look at me, fine, I'd let them. Before Lauren could respond, a familiar voice cut through the room. "Enough." Miles. He walked down the aisle with a calmness that made the room straighten. He didn't look at me, but every step carried weight. He took the mic. "I'm going to address this directly," he said, tone even but edged with steel. "There has been zero inappropriate behavior between me and anyone on my team, including Avery Lane." Whispers burst instantly. He ignored them. "I promoted Avery because her work warranted it, and because these—" he pulled up a slide on the projector— "are her results. Numbers, charts, client retention data, campaign growth. All of it is unmistakably mine. But the moment he defended me, the room's energy flipped, like they'd gotten the confirmation they were waiting for. He's protecting her. Listen to his tone. Obviously biased. Heat rose beneath my skin. This wasn't fixing anything. It was making it worse. I stood. My chair screeched softly. "Miles," I said quietly. "Let me speak." He hesitated, then stepped aside. I faced the room, palms sweating but voice steady. "If you're going to question my integrity," I said, "then at least question it with facts." I connected my laptop. The screen is filled with Slack logs, time-stamped emails, and project ownership sheets. These are the hours I worked. These are the decks I built. These are the deliverables I led. And these, I clicked to a new slide, are the metadata logs from the presentation last week. A gasp rippled through the room. Edited by Jenna Cross. Timestamp 11:47 p.m. Jenna stiffened. "That's taken out of context," she said, voice cracking at the edges. I didn't blink. Context doesn't change the timestamp. And then, a small, shaky voice from the back. "I have something to add." Noah, the intern. His face was pale, but he walked to the front like someone marching toward consequence. "I saw Jenna," he said, "the night of the performance review. She was standing outside the conference room window, taking pictures." Silence detonated. A stunned, electric silence. Jenna's mask shattered. "She stole everything I worked for," she shouted, voice cracking. "Of course he favors her. You all see it." Her outburst echoed through the room, unfiltered, ugly, revealing everything she'd tried to hide. Evan stepped forward. "Jenna, please come with us." "No," she said, backing away, but HR was already closing in. As they escorted her out, the room was still reeling. And Miles finally looked at me with something like relief, or maybe guilt. But the meeting wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, and the pieces of my reputation I now had to put back together. When the town hall finally ended, people avoided my eyes, not out of judgment anymore, but out of guilt, the kind that forces them to look down at their laptops or pretend to check their phones. A few coworkers approached me with awkward half smiles, muttering things like, "Sorry about everything," or "Glad that got cleared up," but their words felt thin, a bandage on a wound they helped create. HR cleared me the next morning, cleared Miles too. The investigation closed with a formal note: no evidence of misconduct. Internal politics escalated due to misinterpretation and third-party interference. In other words, Jenna lit the fire. Everyone else fanned it. They put her on administrative leave pending disciplinary action. People whispered she might be fired. Others said she'd resign before they could push her out. Her desk sat empty, the monitor dark, the faint smell of her floral perfume still clinging to the fabric of her office chair. It should have felt like justice. It didn't. Miles stopped by my desk that afternoon, not as a VP, not as my boss, just as a man who looked tired in a way spreadsheets couldn't explain. "Can we talk?" he asked. We stepped into a quiet corner near the window where sunlight spilled across the carpet in long golden stripes. "I'm requesting a restructuring," he said. "You shouldn't report to me anymore. Not after all this." My stomach tightened, not in fear, but in something heavier. "Because of optics?" He exhaled. "Because I can't pretend anymore that I don't care. HR thinks distance protects us. Maybe they're right." The admission landed softly, painfully. "I felt something too," I told him. "But maybe we need time, space, or a clean slate." He nodded, eyes holding mine a second too long. As he walked away, my phone buzzed with an email from HR. Subject: New Department Collaboration. Introduction to Executive Samuel Grant. A new executive from Seattle, high-ranking, taking over several cross-functional initiatives. And in the forwarded notes, he's particularly interested in Avery's portfolio. I want to meet her immediately. Miles noticed. His expression shifted, tight and unreadable. For the first time since this started, the power dynamics were no longer simple. And something in me, something quiet and steady, realized this story wasn't ending. It was just changing shape. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, or watched people twist your hard work into a rumor, then you already know what this felt like. I'm still rebuilding my reputation, and now there's a new executive studying my portfolio like he's choosing his next move. If you want to know what happens when he shows up, why Miles suddenly looks uneasy every time someone mentions Seattle, tell me in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with anyone stuck in a toxic workplace. Your story might be the next one I tell.